Who doesn't love a beautiful garden? One that's thoughtfully designed, whether it's large or small. You know, when I design gardens, I think of, well, what do you want it to look like in the end? So thinking of the end and the beginning is so important. Whether you're creating a large estate like this, represented in this drawing done in the 18th century, or a tiny plot in your own backyard, it's all very important. You want to consider the elements of design: texture, form, color. Also, how do you move through the space, paths, and so forth? That's what we're going to explore today. One of the most familiar uses of art in our homes is to hang a picture on the wall, right? But what about art in the garden? Now there's a whole different dimension that comes with that. Hi, I'm Alan Smith and welcome to the show. So what is art in the garden? Well, a piece of garden art can act as a focal point to draw the eye to bring the whole space together. It can also be used to punctuate specific areas, like the end of a pathway, for instance, or edging some steps. Then again, you may want to emphasize a feature, such as a doorway or a gap in the hedge with a view beyond. Quite often, gardens are works of art in themselves. They have all the elements of design, such as structure, color, rhythm, etc. Many of them are very specifically designed and others just simply evolve. Now, finding that perfect piece of art to accent your landscape or garden, well, that's a whole nother story. But we're here at Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art, where there's some beautiful examples that will surely inspire us to find ways to integrate these works of art into our own landscapes. Scott, the landscape and gardens here act truly as a gallery for art, don't they?
They do. I think you know how important nature was. We talk about those four pillars. We talked about them years ago. Art, architecture, nature, and education. It just took a while for the grounds to be able to be that canvas, and now they're there.
Right, it's grown in so beautifully.
And now, accepting something new, sculpture in the gardens, it's making a much richer dive into enjoyment of both.
Elements of art in the garden can do so much to animate the space. It can teach, it can inspire.
The biggest impact that sculpture for us here at Crystal Bridges makes is you have to come to a belief that something isn't going to take away from nature. It's actually going to draw people's eyes to the gardens. And that's what a homeowner can do. They can take an area that maybe isn't attractive, that you never want to go out to, put a sculpture at the rear of your property and see how it draws people's eyes.
And it doesn't have to be anything fancy either.
It doesn't. It can just be something colorful that draws your eye to that area.
Yeah, you see lots of examples where art enhances a space, but there are times where too much can go on and it almost looks like a distraction or even litter in the garden. So how do you create balance there?
Well, I think that you start to clutter if you dominate either too many plants, too many colors, or even too much artwork. Find that special piece, draw people's eye there.
Right.
It tells a story. If you did that over and over with 15 pieces, it kind of loses its
impact.
Yeah, it does.
Exactly. Scott, in a case like this where we've got this beautiful lagoon, what was the idea behind adding these chihuly floating balls?
Well, I think native plants. You know, they have their good times and their bad times. What better way to bring out the texture and color that we talk a lot about? Add artwork. It makes the green a little more greener and the leaves a little more wider, and you see all that.
Well, there's also an animation that's going on there too, because these orbs are moving around, which I think creates visual interest.
Well, Alan, you could do this at your house. Everybody has a fish pond. This is a perfect homeowner project. Your landscape, fish pond, art. This is just on a larger scale.
Scott, it's always a pleasure to be here at Crystal Bridges and to see how it's evolving over time and to get your perspective.
Well, it's fantastic having you here. I think that every year this garden changes, and that's the best thing about gardens. It goes through its life cycles. You make for a richer experience by adding art, and that's what we're talking about today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When considering art or ornament in a garden, scale is really important. As you can see behind me, this is Buckminster Fuller's dome, and it's really large and fits the space. Assistant Curator Dylan Turk tells us more about this fascinating object. Dylan, I have to know, what's been the reaction of having the fly's eye here on the grounds of Crystal Bridges?
Amazing. What spaceship landed on the north lawn?
Lots of different comments, I bet.
Yeah.
So when Buckminster Fuller created this, I mean, what kind of time frame are we talking, 60s?
Yeah, he started this in 1966, the project. This actual casting happened in 1979.
I see.
Yeah.
And his whole idea was that we would live in that.
It would be a house.
Makes it even more interesting,
I know,
doesn't it?
yeah.
It's not a piece of garden art, although it's very striking out here.
Right. It wasn't fully realized, but yes, he was thinking it would be a house.
You know, what's so interesting about it is it's called the fly's eye, and was he inspired by nature and actually by a fly?
Yeah, all of his designs, he was looking at the patterns and systems of nature, and then one day he was looking through this magazine and saw this blown up picture of an actual fly's head. And he said, oh wow, that looks like a dome. What happens if you're in it? What happens if this is your structure?
Right.
And that started down the path to create this.
So why don't we go inside and see the world as a fly would?
Yes, let's.
Okay,
Watch
go.
your head.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Wow, this would make a very spacious house.
I know. I'd love this to be my living room.
So he had 3 different floors designed for this, or at least in his head.
Yeah, and he thought that actually the top floor would be an open air garden. So you could grow and have that actual interaction.
Man after my own heart, I love it. So you really do interface with nature.
It is only 50% structure, the rest is open air. And I think that's been huge for us, is now it's making us look at our landscape in a new way.
I know, every one of these is a frame.
Mm-hmm.
And today, with so many people being able to come here and interface with this idea, how it hopefully will inspire them to think about how we live,
Yeah.
how we house ourselves.
It's huge, and that's one of our main goals of having this. How do we need to live? And
Yeah.
do we need to accept that this traditional way of living is always the best way? And I think that when people walk up to this and you tell them it's a house, it's really out of the box.
Yeah.
Literally, it's a circle.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
So,
shape of the earth.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's exciting.
You know, there's something really special about an entrance to a garden. I love coming through a gate, walking along a path, and see lots of beautiful flowers. And that's what I've tried to create here. It's a beautiful time of year because so many of my plants are working together to create an outstanding combination. So why don't we go a little deeper and let me help you understand the combination and why I put this together. I started in the back with tall plants and I come all the way to the path with low plants. In the back, I have that amazing incredible hydrangea. But as you step down, I just want to point out some of the taller plants. There's Cleome, Senorita Rosalita, and for a little contrast, I've thrown in some of that color blaze coleus. They're a sun coleus. And here I've used lime thyme. And just look how its chartreuse foliage contrasts to the tall, spiky flowers of the angel face blue angelonia. In the middle zone of the bed here, you can see this lovely little lantana. It's called Banana Rama lantana. It's a great performer during the hot, hot sun. Just below it, you'll see Supertunia Bordeaux and Indigo Charm Supertunia. To finish up the composition with this soft, frothy edge, we've used this wonderful lobularia. This is called Snow Princess. And again, it really takes the heat. And believe me, when we're at the peak of summer, On the west side of the house, this bed gets a lot of sun. But because of the genetics in these plants, they're resilient and they keep on blooming. When designing your garden's layout, you may want to consider any focal points, pathways, and certainly the existing architecture. This beautiful Texas garden is a prime example of that level of attention to detail. Jack, I have to say, one of the things that strikes me about this beautiful garden is the very strong framework, and this framework created by blooming shrubs.
Well, azaleas are the plant on this property. It's what there's the most of, and they're beautiful. There's a lot of different varieties, so something for everybody.
What's fascinating to me is these big azaleas almost create a series of garden rooms. You can't see from one place to the next, so you create mystery.
Absolutely, and the fact that the paths curve through the gardens, you never know what's going to be around the next bend.
Yeah, that makes it fun.
It does make it
It's like
fun.
an adventure wandering through this garden. It's just fantastic. And I've noticed some of the other plants that you've used in this palette to create this effect. The Japanese maples are gorgeous this time of year.
Very, very pretty. They're pretty in the fall too, but I think they're even prettier in the spring.
Yeah, they add so much to this palette that's laid on this canvas of colorful shrubs. I noticed a big Photinia blooming where you see the reflection in the water.
That is one of the key elements of this property, is that you do get a reflective image of everything that's blooming, and so you get double color.
Double the beauty.
Double the beauty.
Yeah, that's marvelous. And some of the other plants, as we walk around, I've noticed Loropetalum. You've used a good bit of that as well.
You know, that's something that's newer to our landscape here. We didn't used to have it. It's something that was introduced probably about 5 years ago, and it really adds to it.
It's one of those plants where you get the beauty of the leaf or foliage color, and then of course you get that fringy little bloom, which gives that extra pop.
Yes.
I don't think any garden can be complete without a little touch of whimsy. And when you discover that amazing wisteria display, it's so much fun to walk under there. Well, this time of year, all you have to do is follow your nose because the fragrance is incredible.
It is incredible.
Is there a particular part of this garden that you consider a favorite?
You know, I'd have to say that wisteria area is one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's fun to wind through there. You almost feel like you can get lost in it.
Yeah, and this time of year, it's like you said, the smell, you could just want to stay down there for hours.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, the beauty of a garden where you really think through the framework and you get the framework just right, then you come in and you do this layer of well, here in the spring you're doing tulips, and then later these shrubs serve as the backdrop for your annual display.
Absolutely. You know, the different varieties of shrubs, and not just the azaleas, but all the other shrubs, the hollies and everything else, junipers, they all add different textures and shapes, and you know, it's all very important to the landscape.
Don't you think for someone who's beginning a garden, thinking about the shrub display is probably one of the most fundamental things they need to do, because it's the mainstay?
Right, and what you want to do is have a different variety of shapes and sizes and textures, and have that as your backdrop, and then, you know, insert your color out in front of it.
Yeah. As a garden designer, one of the things that I really like is symmetry. It's, I guess, a classical principle. If you look at classical gardens, they're balanced and there's symmetry. And in this garden, you can certainly see it. What I've created is a destination, a place to come and sit and relax and just listen to the sound of the water and hear the birds. But in this space, what I've done is I've created a curved hedge with openings in it, with a focal point in each of the openings in the way of an eagle. And along the base of this hedge, I've created a flower bed which is full of white sun patience. In the center is an oval fountain, and surrounding it are planters filled with boxwood and, again, the white sun patience. Just look at these mounds of white. They look like big scoops of ice cream, don't you think? With the containers and beds in place, I can just change these out from one season to the next. For instance, in the early spring, I've used blue hydrangeas in these large containers. Then in the summer, when the temperature goes up and the sun is the brightest, I fill these containers with sun patience because they can really take the heat and the sun. And just look how abundant they are. The beauty of classical design is it embraces symmetry, and the symmetrical nature of it brings harmony, which makes you feel good while you're in the space. When it comes to the flowers, well, they're just the icing on the cake. I want to introduce you to one of my favorite plants. It's a sedum. It's this one. It's called lemon coral. Isn't it gorgeous? It's one of those constant comment plants. When people come to visit the garden, they always ask about this gorgeous sedum. It's a part of a larger design of plants here that I'd love to share with you. This sedum lemon coral spills out over the edge of the bed onto the pathway. I just love it. It's like molten lava, but in this chartreuse green. And then backing it up is this beautiful ageratum called artist blue. And behind it is a lantana, which the butterflies and hummingbirds love. This one's called luscious marmalade. And then just behind it, back there, it's hard to beat that wonderful color blaze apple brandy. I love the variegation that you can find in the leaf. These plants really know how to put on a show in your garden. As a garden designer, there's nothing I like more than creating beautiful and colorful tapestries of plants. Here, I've created one on the corner of this bed. It's anchored by a large evergreen, a boxwood in a container, but around it I've intentionally kept the plantings low, starting with this beautiful lobularia called Snow Princess. All of those tiny little flowers almost look like a bank of snow. And here next to it, blooming in that beautiful blue color is, well, ageratum artist blue. I love that clear blue color. And next to it is Intensia blueberry phlox, and along the front is Goldilocks rocks. It's a Bidens, and it blooms all summer long. Now at the back of this bed, I've used a variegated coleus. This one's called Color Blaze Alligator Tears. It's the perfect backdrop. The key here was to keep all the plants low, but very colorful and visually impactful. In combinations like this, they really deliver the goods. Bulbs provide a great way to play with color combinations in your landscaping. You see, you can use a combination of warm and cool colors to create contrast by planting daffodils with muscari or purple hyacinths. If you want a more subtle look, try tulips with complementary colors like yellow and orange or pink and purple. The third idea is color blocking, planting in large masses of the same color to create a big visual impact. Try any of these suggestions to create visual interest in your traditional beds or containers. And for more information on bulb combinations, visit my website. I believe art is everywhere, certainly in the garden, particularly this time of year. Everywhere I look, there is beauty. Take a look at the way we did some planting here by having a little fun with lettuce varieties. What you see here is color blocking using romaine lettuce. This is red romaine planted next to green romaine. And by blocking them, you get this sort of, well, bold presentation. There are about 5 rows of each of these colors. And then behind me, I offset the green on the opposite side, and here we have the red in the center. So as you can see, you can get creative and have a lot of fun in the garden. Now, if you look at the next raised bed over, you get this sort of blend of both colors of red and green through that beautiful red sail lettuce. So certainly I've convinced you that these lettuces are a feast for the eyes, but they also are great for the table. Now, one of the ways that I like to harvest romaine is that you can come around and you can just pick the outer leaves just like this, just pulling them off. You can see I'm just taking some of these that are just on the outside and leave the internal leaves. These are more mature, and it just is a way to kind of keep lettuce coming along in the garden. Now, the other way is to, at some point, just take the entire head of lettuce, where I just cut it off right at the ground like this. Now, that's the way we usually see it in the supermarket. And you can take this in and you can create a lovely salad with it, or you can strip off a few more of the leaves like this. And then I love to take these and put a little olive oil on them and garlic and roast them on the grill. Makes a delicious salad with maybe a little Caesar dressing on top. Give it a try and bring a little art to your garden.
Hi, I'm Mina Collins, and I'm one of the master gardeners from Pulaski County, and you're here at our project at Heifer International. I'm originally from LA, and my mother is from Arkansas. So we've always had a garden in the backyard, and she's also had beautiful flowers in the front yard. And so gardening has always been a part of my life. This year we've incorporated flowers because we wanted to do something different. We wanted to do something that would be aesthetically pleasing to the eye. When you're growing basically vegetation and herbs, it's all green. So we wanted to, incorporate a little life into it and have more fun. So I'm so excited that Alan was able to send us over some flowers, and it's really opened my eyes to what you can actually do with flowers as far as vegetation. What we did with the bed is we wanted it to be aesthetically pleasing to the eye. He was kind enough to send over some pink flamingos and the sky blue petunias, and sent over these beautiful firecrackers. So we wanted to balance. Let's say that we had 2 pumpkins on the side. We might incorporate flowers in the middle, just to give it that balance. It's really exciting. We get to, try different things. With myself, I started off with herbs, and then it incorporated into vegetables, and now I'm in love with flowers.
Thank you for joining us in today's show. As we've seen, art doesn't just have to be something that decorates our landscape or serves as a focal point. It can be something that's thought-provocative and also useful. So as you're thinking about your landscape, those things that you see regularly, think about their use. Make sure that they bring you joy and in some way they interface with nature. Until next time, I'm Alan Smith.